Eu tô aparecendo? Não? Então eu tenho que aparecer, né?
É que eu acho que tá com delay.
Assim, um grande delay. Eu apareci. Oi, pessoal, aqui estamos nós de novo para revelar a grande vencedora, sim, é uma mulher, do nosso sorteio da SBS Jornada Mais Educação, junto com a Play to Learn. A grande vencedora foi a Josiane Fortan, né? O arroba dela, arroba Josiane Fortan. Ela cumpriu direitinho com todas as regras e ela ganhou um kit incrível de 32 jogos da Play to Learn. Então, Josiane, a gente vai entrar em contato com você pelo seu Instagram, pelo direct, para pegar todos os dados certinho para a gente enviar o kit para você. Fiquem agora com a palestra do Bruno, que tá incrível, gente. Para pegar todos os dados certinho para a gente enviar o kit para você. Fiquem.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon. How are you doing? Can you all hear me? Yeah? Yes. Hello, good afternoon. So before we start, I'd like all of you to get a piece of paper, like a notebook and a pen or a pencil, or you can use your phones to register something. I'm going to ask you to take a couple of notes. Is that possible? Yeah? Tell me when you're ready. And we'll start. Hello. That's great, Stella. Glad you can hear me. Where are you watching this from? I heard there's someone from Peru. That's super cool. Cusco. Good afternoon from Cusco. Okay, Caja's ready. Okay, good afternoon. Hi, Maritza. Peru. Okay, so shall we start? Yeah. So we can start like on a good note. We're going to do this as we usually do with our students in listening activities. I'd like you to read these sentences and check true or false on your notebook or cell phone. Okay, you don't have to share the answers in the group. If you want to, feel free, but you don't have to. I'm breaking up. Okay, I'll try to speak a bit slower. Okay, so write down your answers for this activity. So true or false. A game involves outcomes and conflict. Games always involve competition. Games naturally positively impact motivation. Conflict, outcomes, and decision-making can motivate students. Rewards can promote cheating. And rewards are an effective tool to motivate students. Okay? Have you got it? Got your answers, true or false? Okay, so the idea is that this activity can activate your prior knowledge on games, gamification, learner motivation, and throughout the session, you should revisit your answers and see if you change your answers by the end of the session or not. Okay, if you don't change your answers, I'm sorry. But if you do, like that means like we could share something and you learn something. Hi, Marcia. Okay, so shall we go? Yeah. So before we can talk about gamification, we have to understand what a game is, right? So first step, I'd like you to think of the last game you played. It can be a video game, like a cell phone game, a board game, whatever. Okay? Hello, Marcia. So think of the last game you played. Naki is a game designer, and in 2014, he systematized the elements of a game, the characteristics of a game, which are decision-making, which means that a game involves the player making decisions, and good games, like the best games, the best games are those in which the player's decisions directly and greatly impact the end of the game, the results of the game, right? So if you're familiar with video games, like the coolest games are those ones that you play and the actions you take throughout the game impact the ending of the game. Naki says that games have to be fun. Well, if a game is not fun, no one's going to play them, right? I mean, that's quite obvious. Games have to be entertaining. A game should have a clear outcome. So every game has to have a clear goal. What do you have to do? Do you have to make more points than the other players? Do you have to draw all the cards on a deck? Do you have to discard all the cards on the deck? What's the objective? The game involves conflict, like this feeling of tension, of that the situation is never, let's say, at ease. So there is this tension involved. There is conflict between players, and sometimes between the players and the game, right? Players don't necessarily have to compete. And games, they have very clear rules, right? So when you're playing virtual hug, that's sweet. So when you're playing a game, you have to understand the rules of the game, right? So again, a game involves decision making, entertainment, outcomes, conflict, and rules. So what we'll see is that, so back to the entertainment part, according to Suits, this is from 1978, he said that playing a game is the voluntary effort to overcome unnecessary obstacles, in the sense that you play a game because you want to take part in the game. It's not because someone told you to play the game. It's not that it's mandatory, but because you want to, because the game is fun in itself, right? Those are the elements of a game. And here we're going to discuss what is not gamification. There are many sources about gamification, saying the elements and how to do it, and what elements you can include in your classes so that they feel gamified. Some of which we're going to discuss. Gamification is not bringing games to class. So the idea is not finding real life games and bringing these games to class. That's not the idea. It's not bringing a PlayStation to class. It's not bringing the game of life to class. It's not bringing a set of cards to class. That might work, but that's not the idea of gamification. Gamification is not using games as time fillers. The idea of gamification is transforming the classroom activities that you already do and that you know that work, activities with a clear linguistic goal, a clear communicative goal, and you add game-like elements to it so that it feels like a game. So it's gamifying teaching and not using a game when you have 5 minutes left and the lesson plan is over. Gamification is not fostering competition, which means that games don't have to be competitive. And in my opinion, games should not be competitive, because whenever there is a competitive game, wherever there is competition, you have a winner or a small group of winners and many losers. And losing is not fun. Being defeated, being beaten is not fun, is not exciting. So this idea of transforming games from competitive to cooperative happened in the field of physical education. Researchers in the field of physical education, they realized that all sports were competitive. And they started questioning if that had to be so. Do games really have to be competitive? All of them. And then here's a challenge to you. Which is the one sport that is not competitive? And of course, that you don't do it alone. Challenge. A sport that is not competitive. Difficult, right? Yeah. The only sport I can personally think of that is not competitive is frescobol. Have you ever played frescobol? Yeah, that one that you get like rackets. Usually, people usually play it at the beach, right? CrossFit. Oh, CrossFit is super competitive. So frescobol is a sport that is not competitive because when you hit the ball, you want the other person to be able to hit it back. So it's a fully cooperative sport in which when someone wins, when people win, everybody win. And when someone loses, everybody loses. And you get that walk of shame like into the ocean shore to get the ball that you slapped it into the water, right? So the idea is that we don't foster competition in the classroom. Some might say, let's say that, but come on, Bruno, students, they have to learn how to lose. It's an important skill, right? Because students have to learn how to lose. But the thing is, students are going to face defeat everywhere. Students are going to be defeated in their regular school. They're going to face failure when facing their family's expectations. They're going to face failure in friends and relationships. They're going to face failure when dating someone. They're going to face failure in vestibular. They're going to face failure in university. They're going to face failure in the market when working. Do they really have to face failure and defeat in English classes? Is this part of our curricula? Like, do we have to teach students to fail and create an environment in which students will face failure inside the English classroom as well? I don't think we have. So the idea is that, and I'm not bringing answers. This is much more of a provocation or a request and a challenge, because creating fully cooperative games is not easy. Because the mindset we have, even though I don't really like that word, but the mindset of playing sports and playing games and creating activities, it gets us directly into the competitive mode. Oh, I'm going to have 2 groups and the groups are going to compete. Oh, I'm going to have 3 groups and they're going to compete. Oh, I'm going to have a board game in which the person who reaches the end of the board is the winner and everybody else loses. So all the games we have under our sleeves, they are competitive. So I'm not making your job any easier. I'm sorry. But the idea is that as educators, we're able to reflect on that and try to create games that are not competitive, but fully cooperative. In my experience, cooperative games, they're more easily attained when you design an activity that students play against the clock. So students have a time limit, like say 10 minutes to finish the task, and everybody has to finish the task under those 10 minutes. And well, I wouldn't project, like I wouldn't have the timer so that they can see it, but you could have it on your phone and you control the time. Because remember, we want to keep the feeling of, oh yeah, the game, the escape room games, they are fully cooperative, right? If you can't escape, everybody loses. Great, I like that. So if you have the timer on your phone, you can sort of, okay, I'm not a bad person for manipulating this, you see, but you can sort of manipulate the time so that your students will be successful, but barely. So for example, say you give students 10 minutes to complete the task, and you realize that they won't be able to complete in 10 minutes, but maybe in 11, you just pause the timer for a bit, let them work, let them get close to finishing, and when you realize that they're about to finish, tell them like 15 seconds so that you get the tension that Naki was talking about, remember? So that students feel this tension, the conflict that, oh wow, we got to do it, we got to finish within those 10, 15 seconds that the teacher said we have. And then when they finish, and they finish under the time limit, and they're successful, you get like the best feeling coming from your students. You will have the whole classroom cheering, the whole classroom celebrating. Instead of, yes, Gabriela, we do that, right? So instead of having students cheer for their peers' failures, because this is what happens. Maybe it doesn't happen out loud because you told students not to celebrate when their friends lose, but they do it inside. So we've been through that. Like you've seen this, haven't you? Like raise your hand. I won't be able to see your hands raised, but raise your hand if you've played a competitive game with your class, and when a team misses a question or loses a point, the other team celebrates. Has that happened? Right? Probably has. And then I believe that this is not what we want to teach students. We don't want to teach our kids to celebrate other people's failures. We want them to celebrate other people's successes, right? So this is the idea, is killing competition, at least in the English classroom, because competition is out there. They're going to compete everywhere else in life, but I don't think the English classroom is the place for it. And gamification is not giving rewards. And we're going to talk about rewards soon enough. What is gamification then? And this, in my opinion, if you want to get this, and then nothing else from this point on, is that gamification is not bringing games to class, is not using games as time fillers, is not fostering competition, and it's not giving rewards. Gamification is getting game-like elements, as in clear objectives, rules, conflict, decision-making, and adding these elements to the classroom activities you already do, that you already know to work. And then what you get from your kids is the sentence, teacher, a gente pode jogar aquele jogo da semana passada? And then you will look at them like, what game? And then they will describe your classroom activity that you gamified as a game. And you go like, huh, yeah, sure. And the game you created was a fully communicative activity to activate the linguistic features and the functions you taught that whole week. And students are asking you to do that again. So how cool is that? Now let's dive deeper into rewards, because whenever you hear about people saying gamify stuff, gamify the company, gamify universities, gamify your classrooms, gamify activities, they're usually talking about giving rewards. And I'll show you what research said about giving rewards. So how does that work? How do rewards work? Mark Leper did a very interesting study, a very small study, to be honest, with 51 kids. They observed many kids during free play and they chose the kids who would choose to draw willingly during free play. So they got 51 kids who would draw and color during their free time. So the only prerequisite for the kids to participate in the study was that these kids loved drawing. What they did was they separated these 51 kids into 3 groups. The first group knew that they were getting a reward. So the researcher told these kids, look, I'd like you to draw me something like super beautiful, super cute and creative. And after you do it, I'm gonna give you a piece of chocolate. The second group didn't know about the reward, but they were rewarded at the end. And the third group, the control group, did not get rewards. Again, all 3 groups were asked to draw, which was an activity that the kids enjoyed doing. The results. The first group, who knew about the reward, anticipated the reward so much that they would just draw anything super quickly to hand it over to the researcher to get the piece of chocolate. The group who got surprise rewards, well, after a couple rounds of the study, they sort of realized that they would get the reward anyway. And they started acting just like the first group. Just drawing anything, just to get it out of the way. And the no reward group was not affected. Which is the thing that is the most mind-blowing, in my opinion, is that the groups who were rewarded, which in theory were expected to be highly motivated to draw because, well, you're drawing, which is an activity you love, and you're getting rewarded for it. So it was supposed to be the groups who would be the most motivated to complete the task, were the groups who drew the poorest drawings with less creativity, less colors, and the fastest, because they just wanted to get the drawing out of the way. Drawing became an obstacle to the reward. And these kids, the kids who were rewarded at the end of the study, they said that they didn't really enjoy drawing that much anymore. Pausa dramática. I mean, so rewards didn't only not motivate them for the task, but it sapped their intrinsic motivation towards a task they already loved. So the idea is that if you're always looking for a reward, you're not focusing on the task. You want the reward, right? Learning the language, exactly, Suri. The idea was that learning a language had to be more fun than getting the reward, right? And then, well, you might say, but Bruno, whenever I give my students rewards, they feel very motivated and they super do the tasks. Another researcher carried out a similar research as Leper, Daniel Pink, and according to his research, these were the results that he got from the kids. As Leper saw it, as Leper found out, rewards cripple intrinsic motivation. So the kids who were rewarded with the candy or with anything, their intrinsic motivation to carry out the task was sapped, was in a way harmed. Rewards can become habit forming. Daniel Pink said that when we reward children, they feel, they become reward torpedoes, in the sense that the kid would do something and expect a reward right there. Because, well, I'm not behaving because I'm behaving. I'm not being polite because I should be polite. I'm being polite because I want to get something out of this. Rewards, they spur short-term mindset, this idea that I do something now to get something right after the act. So kids, they get this idea that nothing that they're doing has a long-term impact in their lives, but it's supposed to be rewarded right there. Rewards, they stifle good conduct and they promote cheating. Leper took one of the parents, like mother and father, and the kid for dinner after the study. I'm going to give you all the references later, okay? And during dinner, there was this crystal bowl, like on top of the table, and the kid, while they were having dinner, the kid grabbed the crystal bowl, pushed it to the edge of the table, looked at the parents and said, how many points if I don't drop this? So the kid was not dropping the crystal ball because they knew that dropping the crystal ball was horrible, but because he or she would be awarded points. Rewarding promotes cheating. Rewards and punishment, they work in a very similar way. Imagine, not imagine, think about it, because I've done it 1,000 times. You tell your students, do your homework. If you don't have your homework done by Monday, I'll call your parents. Have you done that? I have, 1,000,000 times. What happened? Or when you told kids that you would reward them for the homework, what did some of the kids do? Did they copy from their peers? That happened to me a couple of times. Because, again, students are not focused on the activity. They don't understand why they have to do that. They're doing that because you told them to do that. Otherwise, they would be punished or not get a reward. And again, not getting a reward is punishment, right? It's punishment. No reward, they don't do homework. I don't believe that. Most of my students do homework and I give them nothing in exchange. It's because the idea is that if we're rewarding kids and talking about developing critical thinking, how hypocritical is that? Because if we are rewarding students for doing what they're supposed to do, we are sequestering the chance of students understanding why they're doing what they're doing. They're just excellent sheep. They're kids who understand the game of school and are able to perform all the actions to stay under the radar. They're not studying. They're not doing homework because homework is important and will help you revisit what you saw in class and help increase contact hours with the language. No, they're doing it because I threatened them. How much critical thinking is there in doing something because you were threatened? Rewards, they push children into compliance. And compliance kills responsibility. You're not being responsible if someone is being responsible for you. How does that work? And I believe we are in a society that is so marred by reward systems and being rewarded right after we do something good, that I feel contaminated by this feeling of I deserve a reward. Like I've been to courses and to webinars because they would give me a certificate. If the webinar would not give me a certificate, I wouldn't go. Because I was much more interested in getting the certificate to show my employees that I did go to the webinar than on the course itself. Most of my college experience was focused on getting the diploma. When I'm driving and there is a speed trap, I'm driving at 100 kilometers per hour. I see the speed trap. I slow the car down. I go through the speed trap very wisely. And then 10 meters after the speed trap, I push the gas down again. Because my fear is not dying, is not putting my life and the life of the people inside my vehicle at risk, because this critical thinking was not developed in me. But my fear is being punished by a speed ticket. How silly is that? So I feel that our society as a whole has been so contaminated by these reward systems that I end up replicating these behaviors with my students, with my friends, and possibly with my kids, should they ever exist one day, because that's how education works, right? No. It doesn't have to be like that. It shouldn't be like that. Because are we taking a course? Like, are we watching these webinars from these beautiful webinars for SBS? A round of applause, SBS. Thank you very much. For the certificates so that we can show our employees. Or are we doing this because we want to learn, grow, and develop? And if we want the certificate, it's not our fault. It's because that's how we've been brought up. Like parents tell kids, like, take a shower or you're not having lunch. How crazy is that? Are you really going to starve the kid? Probably not. It's going to be a dirty and hungry kid, right? So, according to Mário Sérgio Cortella, great friend of mine, if you don't believe me, take a look at my Instagram. There's a picture of him. Like, to be honest, eu tietei total. Fiquei 1h30 esperando para tirar uma foto com ele e ele rabiscar livro meu que não dá nem para ler a assinatura dele. Happened. But he said that motivation is a door that only opens from inside. Which means that you cannot motivate people. It's impossible. If we could motivate people, everybody would be eating super healthy, hitting the gym 7 times a week, and running a marathon. Because motivation coaches are everywhere. So if we cannot motivate students, but we can easily demotivate people. So this is the catch. We cannot actively motivate people, but we can demotivate them very easily. Rewards, for example, are one way of demotivating people. What can we do? According to Leper, e esse é o pulo do gato, olha que legal. Motivation, intrinsic motivation, is motivation that someone has within themselves to complete a certain task. This motivation often comes from the aspects of the activity and the interaction that the activity has with the person. I cannot motivate my students, but I can design my own tasks, my classroom tasks, so that it has aspects that through the interaction, through the interplay between students, material, classroom environment, that this activity will be intrinsically motivating. Follow me. And here's where I believe gamification works wonders with motivating students towards learning. Let's review a bit. Naki, the game designer, remember that? He said that games involve entertainment, conflict, decision-making, and outcomes. On the other hand, Leper points out that motivating activities, motivating tasks, aspects for intrinsic motivation are... Olha aqui, gente, muito orgulho desse slide, bonito. Ó. Leper says that motivation involves enjoyment, interest, control, and a feeling of competence. Isn't it beautiful? Because if a game has to be entertaining so that students choose to take part in it and don't feel obliged to do it, according to Leper, it has a feeling of enjoyment. So students will have fun while doing your task. The feeling of conflict brought by the conflict and the tension in the game affects students' interest. If there is tension, if there is a time limit, there is conflict, there is interest. If there is decision-making, I feel that I'm in control, and feeling that I'm in control of the activity, of the outcomes of the activity, will motivate me to carry out the task. If a game has clear outcomes, when I reach the outcome of the game, when I complete the goal of the game, I will get the feeling of competence. So I will feel that through my own actions, control, and decision-making, my team and I reached the utmost goal of the game. We reached the objective and we succeeded. We didn't fail. We didn't compete with another team, but we pulled our efforts together and we won. And this is the feeling I'm going home with. The feeling that while cooperating with my peers, we can attain victory. And not the feeling that I was defeated, because that kid is the teacher's pet and he always wins. No, I'm going home feeling that I won. And that's awesome. Come on. So can we go back to the true or false that we started with? Yeah. Rewinding. A game involves outcomes and conflict. That's true. Those are two of the elements of a game. Games always involve competition. Not necessarily. Games can and should be cooperative whenever possible. If you've never played a fully cooperative board game, there are many I could recommend. Take a look at Zombicide if you're into like zombies and a cooperative game. The game you play, you and your friends, like 3 to 4 or 5 friends, I think, and you play against the board. It's insanely fun. And there's a lot of tension, lots of control. It's great. You'll love it. games naturally positively impact motivation. That's false. If a game involves competition and rewards, Zombicide is dope, I know. So if games involve rewards and competition, they can be very demotivating. Conflict, outcomes, and decision making can motivate students. Yes, again, those are part of game elements that clearly connect with Leper's theory of motivation. We saw that rewards can promote cheating. So it happened in my classroom, it happened in my peers' classrooms, it happened in Leper's study, it happened in Daniel Pink's studies. So might be true. And rewards are an effective tool to motivate students. We saw that from Leper's study, which was a very small study, so I'll give you that, because a study with 51 kids cannot be very conclusive, but I believe is a strong indication of something, or at least aquela pulguinha atrás da orelha para tu dar uma olhada, right? So rewards are not an effective tool to motivate students. They are actually a very effective tool to create students who are excellent at following orders. Any questions? And if you want the slides and some articles extra on this, you can type tinyurl.com/motivationsbs, and you will find like there are 3 or 4 articles, the slides on PDF if you want to, and yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite, and follow us at Troika. We're great people there. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Yeah, Troika members, join us. The tiny URL is not working? Huh. It was like yesterday. Motivation at SBS. Are you sure? com/. Uh-oh. No. Thank you.